All right, so a trapezoid, you'll notice, is not a parallelogram. It is a quadrilateral. That means four sided, but it has exactly one pair of parallel sides, meaning as soon as you have two pairs of parallel sides, you've excluded the fact that it's a trapezoid altogether. Trapezoids only have one pair of parallel sides. The other sides are specifically not parallel. There are some labels here you need to know. Your parallel sides are called your bases. So you actually have two bases. And then the non-parallel sides are called your legs. If your legs are congruent, if your legs are the same length, meaning the standard trapezoid that you draw when you're little, right? Your two top and bottom and the perfect sides that are the same length, it's called an isosceles trapezoid. Think of isosceles triangle, two sides are the same length. So if your legs are the same length as an isosceles triangle, isosceles trapezoid, but any trapezoid just means one set of parallel lines. They don't have to have congruent legs to be a trapezoid. All right. Some theorems. Both pairs of base angles of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. Specifically isosceles, not any trapezoid. Isosceles trapezoid. The pairs of base angles are congruent on isosceles trapezoids, and the diagonals of isosceles trapezoids are congruent. So here's where, now that we've introduced this little guy, you cannot stop at just congruent diagonals if you're trying to prove like a rectangle, because a trapezoid actually will have congruent diagonals as well. So you can't stop there if you're trying to prove like a rectangle or something, because this just eliminated that one. It has that same characteristic as a rectangle. All right, coordinate geometry. So then they say this is a quadrilateral. Verify that it's a trapezoid. So they told me it was a quadrilateral. They want me to verify that it's a trapezoid. Really, the only thing you have to do to verify that it's a trapezoid is look at your slopes. All right, you just have to prove that you have one set of parallel lines and that the other set is not. You can't stop at one set, because if it's a parallelogram, one set will be parallel. You have to actually do all of your sides and show me the slopes of all of them. And so if you look at, we've done slope a million times, but if you look at J to K, too big, J to K, then you'll see that it has a slope of 3/4. And if you do M to L, you'll see it also has a slope of 3/4. So we know we have one set of parallel lines. You have to keep going. All right. They did the slope of J to M, and they got 25/0. And they did the slope of K to L, and they got -7/24. So to prove a trapezoid, you have to prove one and only one set of parallel lines. One and only one set. So if I were to ask you this, you would say, yes, this is a trapezoid because these are parallel and these are not specifically. It has to show both of those. All right. And then once you've proven it's a trapezoid, you want to continue and say, is this an isosceles trapezoid? And so that's where you're going to use the distance formula. Distance here and distance here. This one is actually determined that it was. Yes, it is it is one. So if you go from J to M, they ended up with 25 as a length. And from K to L, they ended up with 25 as a length. So then these are congruent, which means this is an isosceles trapezoid, more specifically. All right, so we've talked about specific types. We have parallelograms. That's kind of its own set, which includes your rectangles, your squares, your rhombus, right? So your quadrilateral has parallelograms, and then you have quadrilateral that are not parallelogram. You have your trapezoid. All right, so it's its own little set. It doesn't fall under the stuff that we've been talking about. It has its own set of characteristics. The last thing that's true about is medians. All right, so if you look at page 441, you will see the term median. We've actually talked about median with triangles before, medians of triangles. Same concept. A median of a trapezoid is parallel to the bases. So the median goes from the midpoints of your legs. All right, median goes from the midpoints of your legs. It is parallel to your bases. So your bases and your median will all be parallel. All right, and specifically, it is 1/2 the sum of the measure of the bases. So the median is going to be exactly 1/2 the sum of these two. So if you add these two up and divide by 2, you will get your median. So you used to have 1/2 the sum of the bases. And that will give you the length of the median.
Wow.
All right, so they gave me find TS. So they want us to find TS. And they've given me QR, a base, and they've given me XY, the median. All right? And so I'm going to set it up based on that information. So my median, 15, should be 1/2 base QR plus base TS, which I don't know. All right? The easiest way to do this is to go ahead and multiply by 2, by the way. So let's go ahead and multiply both sides by 2, right? We'll get 30 equals 22 plus x. So we know that x equals 8. So we know the length of TS is going to be 8 there. All right? We know the length is going to be 8. And then measure 1, 2, 3, and 4. If the measure of 1 is 4a minus 10, and the measure of 3 is 3a plus 32.5. And so we're going to look at our base angles here. So they've given us 1 and they've given us 3. All right, 1 and 3. Now this is a quadrilateral, so they've given us 1 and they've given us 3. All right, 1 and 3. It is a quadrilateral. So, what do we know about the consecutive angles? Consecutive interior angles. What do they add up to? Yeah, so I can say my consecutive interior angles add up to 180, right? And then we're just going to use algebra to solve 4a and 3a. We're going to add -10 and 32.5, right? We'll subtract that over, rather. And then my final step, of course, is to divide by 7. A equals 22.5. They want the measures of 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know that 1, this is an isosceles trapezoid. So 1 is congruent to 2, and 3 is congruent to 4, right? So I don't need to solve for all 4 of them. I just need to solve for 1. So plug it into 1, plug it into 3, and I've solved for all of them. So when you plug it in, you get 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 is going to be 80, and 3 and 4. If that's 80, you know that those add up to 180. So this is going to be 100. Right? So you're throwing in just information that you know about everything you studied so far and where it fits.